Marriage is like home renovation. By the time you realize it's rotten underneath, you're already too deep in debt to walk away. I'm Carter Doyle, 42 years old, former firefighter turned insurance adjuster, and I should have seen the warning signs when my wife Vanessa started coming home from her girls' nights, smelling like cheap cologne that definitely wasn't mine. The house we'd been renovating for 3 years sat half-finished around us like a monument to broken promises. Drywall patches covered holes I'd punched during arguments. The kitchen cabinets hung at odd angles because I'd installed them during one of our good periods, when Vanessa actually pretended to care about our home. Now she walked through the rooms like she was touring a crime scene, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Carter, this place is a disaster," she said that Tuesday morning, stepping over paint cans I'd left in the hallway. "When are you actually going to finish something for once?" I looked up from my coffee, noting how she'd dressed up more than usual for her job at the textile factory's HR department. New blouse, expensive-looking jewelry I hadn't seen before. "I'm working on the bathroom this weekend. Want to help pick out tiles?" She snorted. "I have plans." Our 15-year-old son Tyler shuffled into the kitchen, earbuds in, avoiding eye contact with both of us. Smart kid. He'd learned to navigate around our toxic atmosphere like he was walking through a minefield. "Morning, buddy," I said, trying to inject some normalcy into the moment. "Whatever," he mumbled, grabbing a granola bar and heading toward the door. Vanessa didn't even acknowledge him. She was too busy texting someone, her fingers flying across her phone screen with the kind of enthusiasm she hadn't shown me in years. That evening, I came home from work to find Vanessa in the living room with her laptop, supposedly on a video call with her friends Lana and Prisha. I could hear their cackling laughter from the kitchen as I heated up leftover pizza. "Oh my God, you should see what he tried to do in the bedroom last night," Vanessa was saying, her voice carrying that mean edge I'd grown to hate. "I swear, it's like being married to a teenager who learned everything from bad movies." My hand froze on the microwave door. They were talking about me. "At least he's not as pathetic as my ex," Lana chimed in. "But seriously, Van, why don't you just leave him? You're wasting your best years." "Because I'm not stupid," Vanessa replied. "I'm building my case first. Documentation, you know. Plus, Aiden says I need to be strategic about this." Aiden? Who the hell was Aiden? I crept closer to the living room doorway, staying in the shadows. On her laptop screen, I could see Lana's face, and next to her was a guy I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, gym rat build, wearing one of those tight shirts that screamed, "I take selfies at the gym." "Aiden's right," Prisha was saying. "You need leverage, make him look like the bad guy, then take him for everything he's got." The guy, Aiden, leaned into the camera. "Vanessa, babe, you deserve so much better than that loser. When you're ready to make your move, I'll be right here waiting." My wife giggled like a schoolgirl. "You're so sweet. I can't wait for this weekend." I backed away slowly, my mind racing. This wasn't just complaining about marriage. This was conspiracy. And who was this Aiden character calling my wife babe? The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Vanessa's purse while she was in the shower. Buried under receipts and makeup, I found a gaudy gold necklace with an engraving that made my stomach drop. V+A forever. Underneath it was a receipt from the Pineview Motor Lodge, dated last Saturday, the day Vanessa claimed she was shopping with Lana. I photographed everything with my phone, then put it all back exactly as I'd found it. My hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear for the first time in months. The woman I'd married, the mother of my son, was planning to destroy me. That night, Vanessa came home drunk. Not tipsy, drunk. She stumbled through the front door at nearly midnight, her lipstick smeared, her hair messed up. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. She looked at me with pure contempt. "Out having fun. Remember what that's like?" "With Aiden?" Her face went pale for a split second, then hardened into something ugly. "So what if I was? At least he knows how to treat a woman." "You're married, Vanessa. We have a son." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, please. This marriage has been dead for years. You're just too pathetic to admit it." I stood up from the couch, and she immediately took a step back, her expression shifting to something calculated. "Don't you dare come near me," she said loudly, her voice carrying upstairs where Tyler was supposedly sleeping. "I'm warning you, Carter." "I'm not going to hurt you," I said quietly. "I've never laid a hand on you." "That's not how I'll tell it," she hissed. "Who do you think they'll believe?" The successful HR manager or the washed-up firefighter who can't even finish renovating his own house? The next morning, I woke up to find my clothes thrown across the front lawn. Vanessa was standing in the doorway, her face sporting 3 long scratches that definitely hadn't been there the night before. Lana and Prisha were with her, both holding up their phones to record. "Get off my property!" Vanessa screamed loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "I don't want you near me or my son ever again." Mrs. Henderson from next door peeked over the fence, her eyes wide. Other neighbors were starting to emerge from their houses, drawn by the commotion. I started gathering my clothes from the wet grass, my face burning with humiliation. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago," she spat. "Lana, call the police. Tell them my husband attacked me." But when the police arrived 20 minutes later, something unexpected happened. Officer Mendez, who I knew from my firefighter days, took one look at the scene and shook his head. "Carter," he said quietly, "you got somewhere else you can stay?" "My mom's place," I replied. "Good. Go there now." He glanced at Vanessa and her friends with obvious distaste. "We'll handle this." As I loaded my hastily packed bags into my truck, I heard Mendez talking to Vanessa in a tone that wasn't nearly as sympathetic as she'd expected. "Ma'am, those scratches on your face look self-inflicted. And we've had reports about your activities at the Pineview Motel. I'd suggest you think carefully about what story you want to tell here." For the first time in months, I smiled. My mother's house smelled like coffee and disappointment, just like it had when I was 16 and screwing up my life on a daily basis. Peggy Doyle was 73 years old, 5 feet tall, and tougher than most men I'd worked with at the fire department. "I never liked that woman," she said, pouring me a cup of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. "Too pretty, too ambitious, and too mean around the eyes. Should have listened to your old mother." "Thanks, Mom. Really helpful now. Don't get smart with me, Carter James. You're in my house now, eating my food and sleeping on my couch. The least you can do is listen to some wisdom." She was right, of course. She usually was, which made it even more annoying. Tyler showed up that afternoon, his backpack slung over his shoulder, and a look of determination on his face that reminded me of myself at that age. "I'm staying here," he announced. "Mom's new boyfriend is a complete tool, and I'm not living with them." "What new boyfriend?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Aiden. He moved in yesterday and tried to give me a lecture about respecting my mother's choices and embracing positive change. I told him to embrace my fist. Despite everything, I felt proud of the kid. You can't just move out, Tyler. There are legal issues. Mom doesn't care. She's too busy playing house with Captain Motivational Speaker. He's got her convinced they're going to be Instagram famous or something." That evening, I drove past our house, my house, legally speaking, and saw Aiden's white BMW in the driveway. Through the living room window, I could see him and Vanessa on the couch, her head on his shoulder while they watched TV in the space I'd spent 3 years trying to make into a home. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete, my old partner from the fire department. "Heard about your situation. Meet me at Big Al's. We need to talk." Big Al's Tavern was the kind of place where blue-collar guys went to drink away their problems and pretend they had solutions. Pete was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and wearing the expression he used to get before we ran into burning buildings. "Sit down," he said. "I've got some information you need to hear." Big Al himself, a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks, leaned across the bar. "Carter, I'm sorry about what's happening to you. That woman's been coming in here for weeks with that pretty boy, acting like they own the place." "What do you mean?" "They've been using my back room for their little meetings. Thought they were being sneaky, but I've got cameras everywhere." He pulled out his phone and showed me a video that made my blood boil. Vanessa and Aiden were in the back room, all right, but they weren't alone. Lana and Prisha were there too, along with 2 other people I didn't recognize. They had papers spread out on the table, and I could hear fragments of their conversation. "The key is documentation," Aiden was saying. "We need to establish a pattern of erratic behavior, maybe some financial irresponsibility." "I've already started spreading stories at work," Vanessa replied. "Told them Carter's been drinking heavily, that I'm afraid of him." "Perfect. And the house renovation gives us another angle. He's clearly unstable if he can't finish simple projects." Pete's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack his teeth. "There's more. Mendez did some digging on your boy Aiden. Turns out he's not exactly what he claims to be." "What do you mean?" "His life coaching business? It's a joke. He's got no certifications, no real clients, and he's been running the same scam on lonely wives for years. 3 different women in 3 different towns, all the same pattern." I felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. What happened to the other women? That's the interesting part. They all ended up broke and alone when he moved on to the next mark. But here's the thing. He always makes sure to destroy the husband first, so there's more money to grab. Big Al nodded grimly. Your wife thinks she's playing him, but he's playing her. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I looked at both of them, these men who'd had my back through years of dangerous work, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. I'm going to burn their whole plan to the ground, I said, but I'm going to do it smart. The next day, I started my research. Aiden Brooks, if that was even his real name, had a surprisingly large social media presence for someone with no legitimate business. His Instagram was full of motivational quotes over sunset photos, and his Facebook page advertised life transformation coaching for the low price of $500 per session. But the real gold mine was his YouTube channel, where he hosted live streams every Tuesday and Thursday, spouting generic self-help nonsense to an audience of middle-aged women looking for meaning in their lives. I spent hours watching his videos, studying his patterns, learning his weaknesses. He was vain, predictable, and sloppy with his personal information. In one video, he accidentally showed his gym membership card, complete with address. In another, he mentioned his favorite restaurant, and the fact that he went there every Friday night. Most importantly, I learned that his next live stream was scheduled for Thursday at 8 p.m., with the theme, Breaking Free from Toxic Relationships. The irony was too perfect to ignore. Wednesday night, I sat in my mother's kitchen with Tyler, both of us working on our laptops. He was doing homework. I was planning the first phase of my revenge. Dad, he said without looking up from his screen, are you going to fight for Mom? I considered the question carefully. I'm going to fight for what's right. There's a difference. Good, he said, because she's not worth fighting for anymore. But you are. Thursday at 8 p.m., I was ready. I'd spent 2 days learning everything I could about live streaming, creating fake accounts, and researching Aiden's technical setup. When his stream went live, I was one of the first viewers. Good evening, beautiful souls, Aiden said to the camera, his white teeth gleaming under professional lighting. Tonight we're talking about breaking free from the people who hold us back from our true potential. He had about 50 viewers, mostly women asking questions in the chat about their relationships and careers. I waited until he was in full flow, spouting nonsense about toxic masculine energy, before I made my move. I'd prepared a simple but devastating PowerPoint presentation, and I'd figured out how to hijack his stream using a technique I'd learned from Tyler. When Aiden's motivational slideshow disappeared and was replaced by my research, his face went white. What the hell? He started to say, then caught himself as he realized he was still live. My slides were simple and brutal. Screenshots of his previous identities in other cities, photos of the women he'd scammed, court documents showing judgments against him for fraud, and finally, screenshots of his text messages with Vanessa, which I'd managed to access through her cloud backup. The chat exploded with comments from his viewers, who were suddenly seeing their life coach for what he really was. But the best part was the final slide, a photo of Aiden and Vanessa in the motel room, with the caption, currently scamming another married woman in Maine. This isn't real, Aiden stammered, trying to regain control. Someone's hacking my stream, this is all fake. But it was too late. His viewer count was climbing as people shared the stream, and the comments were brutal. Within minutes, screen recordings were being posted to other social media platforms. I closed my laptop and smiled. Phase 1 was complete. The aftermath of Aiden's public humiliation was even better than I'd hoped. By Friday morning, his social media accounts were flooded with angry comments from former clients and current victims. His YouTube channel was suspended pending investigation, and his Instagram was a wasteland of laughing emojis and fire symbols. But Vanessa, predictably, doubled down on stupid. She showed up at my mother's house that afternoon, her face twisted with rage, Aiden sulking behind her like a scolded child. "You think you're so clever?" she screamed from the sidewalk. "Destroying innocent people's lives because you can't handle the truth about yourself." My mother appeared at the front door, wearing her gardening gloves and the expression she used to reserve for door-to-door salesmen. "Vanessa Marie, you get off my property before I call the police, and take your boyfriend with you." "This is harassment," Vanessa shot back. "I'll sue you for everything you've got." "With what money?" I asked, stepping out onto the porch. "Last I checked, your life coach is about to be unemployed, and you're still making $12 an hour at the factory." Aiden finally found his voice. "You don't know who you're messing with, old man." "I have connections, resources." "You have a fake business and a criminal record," I interrupted. "I did my homework, Aiden." Or should I call you Andrew? Or maybe Anton? You've used so many names, I'm losing track. His face went pale, confirming what I'd suspected. The man was a professional con artist, and Vanessa was just his latest mark. Tyler appeared beside me, his phone in his hand. Mom, you're being recorded right now. Everything you say is going straight to social media. For the first time, Vanessa seemed to realize how this looked. A grown woman screaming at her teenage son while her boyfriend stood there like a useless ornament. Tyler, honey, she said, trying to shift to her fake sweet voice. You don't understand what's happening here. Your father is sick. He needs help. What I understand, Tyler cut her off, is that you cheated on Dad, threw his clothes on the lawn, and now you're dating a guy who got exposed as a fraud on the internet. I may be 15, but I'm not stupid. Aiden made the mistake of stepping forward. Kid, you need to show your mother some respect. And you need to shut up, Tyler replied, without missing a beat. You're not my father, you're not my stepfather, and you're definitely not someone I'm going to take advice from. I'd never been prouder of my son. That weekend, I put phase 2 of my plan into action. I'd learned that Aiden worked out at the fitness palace every morning at 6 a.m. and that he was obsessively protective of his BMW. The car was clearly his pride and joy, always parked in the same spot, always pristine. I didn't damage it. That would have been illegal. Instead, I did something much more creative. Aiden's car had one of those fancy smart systems that connected to his phone. With a little research and some help from Tyler, who turned out to be surprisingly good with technology, I figured out how to sync my own device to his car's Bluetooth system. Monday morning at 6:15, just as Aiden was finishing his workout and walking to his car, I activated my plan. His BMW sound system suddenly blared at maximum volume. I'm a cheating scumbag who preys on married women. The message repeated on loop, while Aiden frantically tried to shut it off, drawing stares from everyone in the gym parking lot. Several people started recording with their phones, and I made sure to be there with my own camera, capturing his humiliation from multiple angles. But the real masterstroke came that evening. Aiden was scheduled to give a motivational seminar at the community center, one of his few remaining paid gigs. Vanessa had been promoting it on her Facebook page, calling it an evening of transformation and growth. Pete and I had a different kind of transformation in mind. We arrived early and set up in the back row, along with about 30 other people who'd paid $20 each to hear Aiden's wisdom. He looked nervous as he took the stage, probably because half the audience was there just to see the guy from the viral video. Good evening, friends, he began, his voice lacking its usual confidence. Tonight, we're going to talk about overcoming adversity and turning negative experiences into positive growth. He was about 10 minutes into his presentation when the fire alarm went off. Now, I should mention that I'd called in a favor with my old fire department buddies. There was no actual fire, just a routine inspection that happened to coincide with Aiden's seminar. But when the alarm sounds, everyone has to evacuate immediately. In the chaos of people filing out of the building, Aiden somehow managed to get separated from his clothes. Don't ask me how, let's just say Pete has a talent for creating confusion, and Aiden was so flustered that he didn't notice his jacket and pants going missing until he was already outside. The best part was that Lana, who'd been recording the seminar for Vanessa, caught the whole thing on video. Aiden standing in the parking lot in his underwear, trying to maintain his dignity while explaining to the crowd that this was all a misunderstanding. The video went viral within hours. Tuesday morning, I woke up to find that Vanessa had been fired from her job. Apparently, her supervisor had seen the videos of her screaming at her family and decided that someone with such poor judgment shouldn't be working in human resources. She called me, sobbing and desperate. Carter, please, we need to talk. This has gone too far. I agree, I said calmly. It went too far when you decided to cheat on me and planned to destroy my reputation. But we're not done yet. What do you want? I want my house back. I want full custody of Tyler. And I want you and your boyfriend to disappear from my life forever. You can't do this to me. Watch me. That afternoon, Tyler came home from school with a black eye and split lip. I found him in the bathroom, trying to clean himself up. What happened? Some kids at school saw the videos of Mom, he said quietly. They were saying things about her, about us. I couldn't just let them talk. I felt a surge of anger that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with protecting my son. Who were they? It doesn't matter, Dad. I handled it, but it did matter. These kids were bullying Tyler because of his mother's behavior, and that crossed a line I couldn't ignore. The next morning, I was waiting in the school parking lot when classes let out. I spotted the three boys who'd been harassing Tyler. They were easy to identify because they were still laughing about something as they walked toward their bikes. "Excuse me," I called out, approaching them with the calm confidence I'd learned from years of dealing with emergencies. "I'm Tyler Doyle's father. I believe you boys have something to say to me." The biggest one, a kid who looked like he'd been held back a couple of grades, sneered at me. "Your son's a loser, just like his mom." I smiled, the kind of smile that made grown men nervous. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to Tyler, and you're going to leave him alone from now on. Because if I hear about you bothering him again, I'm going to have a conversation with your parents about bullying and harassment." "You can't tell us what to do," the kid shot back. "Actually, I can. See, I know who your parents are. I know where you live, and I know that your dad, Jimmy Morrison, has been claiming disability while working construction jobs on the weekends. I'm an insurance investigator, son. I notice these things." The kid's face went white. His friends suddenly found their shoes very interesting. "Tyler's a good kid who's dealing with a difficult situation," I continued. "He doesn't deserve to be punished for his mother's mistakes. So we're going to make this simple. Leave him alone or deal with me." "What's it going to be?" They apologized to Tyler the next day, but Vanessa wasn't done making things worse for herself. Vanessa's next move was so predictably stupid that I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She decided to throw a new beginnings party at what used to be our house, inviting half the neighborhood to celebrate her liberation from a toxic marriage. The Facebook invitation was a masterpiece of self-delusion, complete with inspirational quotes about strong women and authentic living. What she didn't know was that I'd been quietly building relationships with our neighbors over the past few weeks. Mrs. Henderson, who'd witnessed Vanessa's lawn tantrum, had become surprisingly sympathetic to my situation. The Kowalskis next door had always liked me better anyway. Even the new couple across the street had heard enough gossip to know which side of this mess they were on. So when Vanessa sent out her party invitations, I sent out my own. "Block party at the Doyle's house," my invitation read. "Come see the real story behind the neighborhood drama. Refreshments provided, entertainment guaranteed." Saturday afternoon arrived with perfect weather and a sense of anticipation that reminded me of the calm before a major fire call. I positioned myself across the street at the Kowalskis' house, where I had a clear view of the action and several neighbors who'd agreed to help document whatever happened. Vanessa had clearly spent money she didn't have on decorations and food. The yard looked like a Pinterest board explosion, complete with string lights and a banner that read, "New Chapter, New Me." Aiden was manning a barbecue grill, wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the Cook," and trying to look like he belonged there. The first guests to arrive were Lana and Prisha, both dressed like they were going to a nightclub instead of a backyard barbecue. They immediately started taking selfies and posting them to social media with hashtags like "girl power" and "living my best life." But then the other neighbors started showing up, and the dynamic shifted quickly. "Vanessa," Mrs. Henderson said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I have to ask, are you sure you should be throwing parties at a house you don't legally own?" Vanessa's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "This is my home." "Actually," I said, stepping into the yard with a folder full of documents, "it's not. The house is in my name, the mortgage is in my name, and you're currently trespassing." The party guests turned to stare as I approached, Pete and two other guys from the fire department flanking me like bodyguards. "You can't do this," Vanessa hissed. "I live here." "Not anymore," I replied, pulling out the restraining order I'd filed that morning. "You have 30 minutes to gather your personal belongings and leave. After that, you're in violation of a court order." Aiden stepped forward, puffing out his chest like he was going to intimidate me. "This is harassment, man. You can't just kick people out of their own home." "Watch me," I said, then turned to address the crowd of neighbors who'd gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming today. You're about to witness something special." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker I'd brought. "For the past few months, you've all heard one side of this story. Now let me share the other side." The first recording I played was from Vanessa's video call with her friends, the one where they discussed their plan to frame me and take everything I owned. The crowd listened in stunned silence as my wife's voice filled the air, detailing her scheme with casual cruelty. "That's illegal," Vanessa screamed. "You can't record people without their consent." "Actually, I can," I replied. "Maine is a one-party consent state, and I was a party to the conversation since you were talking about me in my own house." The next recording was even better. Aiden explaining his con game to Vanessa, complete with details about his previous victims and his plans for our divorce settlement. By the time the recordings finished, Vanessa's party guests were staring at her with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Lana and Prisha had quietly slipped away, apparently deciding they didn't want to be associated with this level of public humiliation. "You're all just jealous," Vanessa shouted at the crowd. "Jealous that I had the courage to leave a dead marriage and find real love." "Real love?" Mrs. Henderson laughed. "Honey, that man's been running the same scam for years. You're not special, you're just gullible." Aiden tried to salvage the situation. "Look, there's been some misunderstandings here." "The only misunderstanding," Pete interrupted, "is how you thought you could con a firefighter's family and get away with it." That's when things got physical. Aiden made the mistake of shoving Pete, apparently forgetting that firefighters are required to stay in excellent physical condition. Pete didn't even budge, but Aiden stumbled backward and tripped over his own barbecue grill, sending hot dogs and hamburgers flying across the yard. The crowd burst into laughter as Aiden scrambled to his feet, his kiss the cook apron covered in mustard and grass stains. "This is assault!" he yelled, pointing at Pete. "I'm calling the police." "Please do," Officer Mendez said, appearing from behind the crowd. "I'd love to hear your version of events." I'd called Mendez earlier, asking him to stop by in case things got out of hand. He'd been watching from the street, taking notes and probably enjoying the show. "Officer, these people are harassing us," Vanessa said, switching to her victim voice. "They're trying to steal my home and destroy my relationship." Mendez looked at her with the expression cops reserve for people who've wasted too much of their time. "Ma'am, I've got a restraining order here that says you need to vacate these premises. I also have several witness statements about your recent behavior. I'd suggest you comply with the court order before this gets worse for you." Vanessa's face crumpled as she realized she'd lost. The neighbors were against her, the police weren't buying her act, and her boyfriend was too busy brushing mustard off his clothes to offer support. "This isn't over," she said, trying to maintain some dignity as she gathered her purse and keys. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over since the moment you decided to betray your family." As Vanessa and Aiden drove away in his mustard-stained BMW, the remaining neighbors broke into spontaneous applause. Mrs. Henderson brought out a bottle of wine she'd been saving, and the Kowalskis fired up their own grill to replace the food Aiden had scattered across the yard. "Carter," Pete said, clapping me on the shoulder, "that was beautiful. But you know she's going to try something else, right?" I nodded. "I'm counting on it." 3 days later, Vanessa made her final desperate move. She filed for emergency custody of Tyler, claiming I was mentally unstable and had been stalking her. The court date was set for the following Monday, giving me exactly 5 days to prepare for the fight of my life. But Vanessa couldn't wait for the legal system to work. On Thursday night, she and Aiden decided to take matters into their own hands. I was in my mother's kitchen, helping Tyler with his homework, when my phone buzzed with an alert from the security system I'd installed at the house. Someone had broken in through the back door. "Tyler, stay here with Grandma," I said, grabbing my keys. "Call Officer Mendez and tell him what's happening." "Dad, don't go alone," Tyler said, fear creeping into his voice. "I'll be fine, son. Trust me." The drive to the house took 8 minutes, long enough for me to call Pete and ask him to meet me there with backup. When I pulled into the driveway, I could see lights on inside and shadows moving past the windows. I didn't go in immediately. Instead, I activated the security cameras I'd installed throughout the house and started recording everything on my phone. Whatever Vanessa and Aiden were planning, I wanted it documented. Through the living room window, I could see them searching through boxes and papers, clearly looking for something specific. Vanessa was holding a manila folder, while Aiden was going through my desk drawers. "Find anything?" I heard Vanessa ask as I crept closer to the window. "Not yet," Aiden replied, "but he's got to have some kind of evidence we can use against him. Financial records, personal stuff, anything that makes him look unstable." "What about his computer?" "Already checked. It's password protected, and I'm not a hacker." I smiled in the darkness. They were looking for ammunition to use in court, but they were also committing felony breaking and entering. With my security system recording everything, they were building my case for me. That's when I heard Tyler's voice from inside the house. "What are you doing here?" My blood ran cold. He was supposed to stay at my mother's house, but apparently he'd followed me. I could see him standing in the living room doorway, his backpack still on his shoulders. "Tyler." Vanessa's voice was sharp with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I live here," he said simply. "What's your excuse?" Aiden stepped toward my son, and something primal and dangerous awakened in my chest. "Kid, You need to come with us. Your mom's worried about you living with your dad. My mom threw my dad's clothes on the lawn and moved her boyfriend into our house, Tyler replied. I think I know who I should be worried about. That's when I decided to end this. I walked through the front door like I owned the place, which I did, and found the three of them in a standoff in my living room. Evening, folks, I said casually. Nice night for a break-in. Vanessa spun around, her face flushing with guilt and anger. Carter! This isn't what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you and your boyfriend broke into my house to steal evidence for your custody hearing. We have a right to be here, Aiden said, trying to sound authoritative. Vanessa lived here for 15 years. Had a right, I corrected. Past tense. She gave up that right when she moved out and got served with a restraining order. Tyler moved to stand beside me, and I felt a surge of pride at his loyalty. Dad, they were going through your personal stuff. Mom had your financial records. I looked at the folder in Vanessa's hands. Is that true? Are you trying to steal my private financial information? It's not stealing if it's community property, she shot back. Actually, it is stealing when you break into someone's house to get it. That's called burglary, and it's a felony. Aiden was starting to look nervous. Look, man, we can work this out. No need to get the police involved. Too late for that, Pete said, appearing in the doorway with two other firefighters. They're already on their way. Behind him, I could see the flashing lights of police cars pulling into the driveway. Vanessa realized she was trapped. Her face went through a series of expressions, fear, anger, desperation, before settling on the cold calculation I'd learned to recognize. Tyler, she said, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone. Come with Mommy. Daddy's sick, and he's going to hurt us. No, he's not, Tyler said firmly. Dad's never hurt anyone in his life. You're the one who's been lying and cheating and trying to destroy our family. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Tyler interrupted. You chose your boyfriend over your family. You threw Dad out of his own house. You got yourself fired from your job, and now you're breaking into our house like a common criminal. I'm 15, Mom, not 5. I can see what you really are. Vanessa's mask finally slipped completely. You ungrateful little brat. After everything I've done for you. What have you done for me? Tyler shot back. You've embarrassed me at school, destroyed my family, and now you're trying to kidnap me. Some mother you are. That's when Vanessa snapped. She lunged at Tyler, her hands reaching for him like claws, her face twisted with rage. I stepped between them without thinking, catching her wrists before she could reach my son. That's enough! Let go of me, she screamed, struggling against my grip. Help me, Aiden! He's attacking me. But Aiden was backing toward the door, clearly more interested in escaping than helping. Vanessa, we need to go. Now. You coward, she yelled at him. You said you'd protect me. I said a lot of things, Aiden replied, his true nature finally showing. But I didn't sign up for felony charges. He ran for the back door, leaving Vanessa alone with me, Tyler, Pete, and the sound of police officers entering the house. Ma'am, step away from your husband, Officer Mendez commanded as he entered the living room, his hand resting on his weapon. He's attacking me, Vanessa screamed. He's trying to hurt me and kidnap my son. Mendez looked around the room, taking in the scattered papers, the broken lock on the back door, and Tyler standing safely beside me. Ma'am, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, attempted burglary, and violation of a restraining order, he said, pulling out his handcuffs. This is a setup, Vanessa protested as Mendez cuffed her. He planned this whole thing. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, you planned it. I just recorded it. I played back the audio I'd captured through the security system, including her admission that she was looking for evidence to use against me and Aiden's confession about their scheme. As Mendez led Vanessa toward the door, she turned back to Tyler one last time. You'll regret this, she said, her voice cold and bitter. When you're older, you'll understand what kind of man your father really is. Tyler looked at her with the kind of calm wisdom that shouldn't exist in a 15-year-old. I already understand what kind of woman you really are, Mom. And I'm sorry for you. The police caught Aiden trying to climb over the back fence. Apparently, he'd gotten his expensive jeans caught on the chain link and was hanging there like a scarecrow when they found him. By midnight, it was all over. Vanessa and Aiden were in jail, facing multiple felony charges. The custody hearing was canceled when Vanessa's lawyer withdrew from the case. And Tyler and I were finally alone in our house, surrounded by the mess they'd made but free from their poison. Dad, Tyler said as we sat on the couch, both of us exhausted. What happens now? I looked around the living room, seeing it clearly for the first time in months. The half-finished drywall, the paint samples taped to the walls, the renovation projects I'd abandoned when my marriage started falling apart. "Now we finish what we started," I said. "We fix this house, we fix our lives, and we move forward." "What about Mom?" I considered the question carefully. "Your mother made her choices, son. She chose Aiden over her family, lies over truth, and crime over dignity. Those choices have consequences." Tyler nodded, understanding more than any kid should have to. "I'm glad you fought for us, Dad." "I didn't fight for us," I corrected him. "I fought for what was right. There's a difference." 3 months later, Vanessa pled guilty to reduced charges and received 2 years probation. Aiden, who had outstanding warrants in 2 other states, wasn't so lucky. The house renovation was finally finished, and Tyler and I had settled into a routine that actually felt like a family. I never saw or heard from Vanessa again. Sometimes Tyler would get a birthday card or a Christmas present in the mail, but she never tried to contact him directly. Maybe she finally understood that she'd burned that bridge beyond repair. The neighborhood gossips eventually moved on to other scandals. Mrs. Henderson still brought us cookies every Sunday. Pete and the guys from the firehouse helped me build a deck in the backyard. Life moved on the way it always does, leaving the wreckage of bad choices in its wake. But on quiet evenings, when Tyler was doing homework and I was reading in my favorite chair, I would sometimes think about that night when everything came to a head. The night when all of Vanessa's schemes and Aiden's cons finally collapsed under the weight of their own stupidity. I never regretted fighting back. Some people might say I went too far, that I should have taken the high road and let the legal system handle everything. But those people never had their lives systematically destroyed by someone they trusted. Sometimes, when someone tries to burn your life down, the only response is to return the favor. And sometimes, if you're smart about it, you can make sure they're the only ones who get burned. 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 Burned.